The air in the Garnook processing facility was a thick soup of antiseptic and despair. Sergeant Miles Thorne had seen a lot in his 10 years with the Terran Expeditionary Force, but this place curdled something deep in his soul. It was a market, plain and simple, but the merchandise was sentient. He stood with his unit, a bastion of human stoicism amidst a swirling crowd of galactic buyers. There were the hulking, chitinous Vorics, clicking their mandibles as they assessed physical strength, the ethereal, floating Sylphi, who valued psionic potential, and a dozen other species, all here to bid on the lines of shackled, terrified children. It was the Galactic Compact had ruled their right. The Garnook homeworld had failed to pay its imperial tithe. The offspring of its debtors were forfeit. Legal, clean. It made Miles want to vomit. "Stay focused, Sergeant." Captain Jax's voice crackled in his comms. "We are observers only. The Compact is watching. One wrong move and Earth loses its voting seat." "Understood, sir," Miles replied, his jaw tight. His eyes scanned the rows of young, frightened faces. Most were Garnook, small, with soft gray fur and large, luminous eyes. But one, at the very end, was different. She was smaller than the rest, her skin a pale, opalescent blue. A pair of small, nub-like horns protruded from her brow, and her hair was a silvery white cascade. She was a Zillion, a species known for their volatile empathic abilities, and she was utterly alone. The auctioneer, a bloated Tlek, waddled to her platform. Lot 87, a rare specimen, a Zillion female juvenile, high empathic quotient, potential for specialized service. The implication was vile. A murmur of interest ran through the Sylphi contingent. The bidding started. A Vorix bid first, likely seeing her as a fragile curiosity to break. A Sylphi countered, their voice a whisper of psychic static. The price climbed. Then from the back, a new voice, cold and sharp as a shard of ice, cut through the noise. 50,000 credits. A hush fell, a being clad in polished, black armor, a Krothgar, stood with its arms crossed. The Krothgar were slavers, pit fighters, and worse. Everyone knew what they did with empaths. They used them as living lie detectors, emotional sponges for interrogation, until their minds shattered. The little Zillion girl seemed to sense it. She didn't cry out. She just folded in on herself, her small shoulders slumping in a resignation that was far too old for her years. The Sylphi, after a moment's hesitation, withdrew. The Voric snarled but fell silent. The price was too high. Going once, going twice. Miles's heart hammered against his ribs. He saw his entire career flash before his eyes. Court-martial, disgrace, prison. But then he saw the girl's face. He saw his own daughter's face, back on Earth, safe in her bed. "Sergeant, stand down." Jax's voice was a warning growl in his ear. The Krothgar made a gesture of triumph. 100,000, Miles said, his voice unnaturally loud in the silent hall. Every head, alien and human, swiveled to look at him. The Krothgar's featureless helmet tilted. "Thorne, what in God's name are you doing?" Jax hissed. "I'm not using Terran funds, sir." Miles said, keying a private channel. "This is my personal account. My inheritance. It's legal." There was a long, static-filled silence from Jax. "You're a fool, Sergeant." The Krothgar bid 110. Miles bid 120. The alien slaver took a step toward him, the air growing cold around its armored form. It was a blatant intimidation tactic. Miles didn't flinch. He'd faced worse in back-alley bars on a dozen worlds. 150. The Krothgar spat. Miles took a deep breath. This was it. Every credit he had. 200,000. The auctioneer's gavel hit the podium with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. Sold. To the Terran, the Hrothgar stood motionless for a long moment, then turned and strode away, the promise of future violence hanging in its wake. Minutes later, the transaction complete, Miles stood before the small platform. The shackles on the girl's wrists clicked open. She didn't move. She just stared at the floor, trembling. Miles knelt, bringing himself to her eye level. He slowly, carefully, removed his helmet. He wanted her to see his face. "Hey there," he said, his voice soft. "My name is Miles. What's yours?" She flinched, pressing herself back against the post. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." He reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out his emergency ration bar, the one with the chocolate coating his daughter loved. He broke off a small piece and held it out. Her large, amethyst-colored eyes flickered from the food to his face. Hesitantly, she reached out and took it. She nibbled, then her eyes widened. A tiny, almost imperceptible spark of light returned to them. "Lyra," she whispered, her voice like the chime of a small bell. "Lyra," Miles repeated, smiling. "That's a beautiful name. You're safe now. I'm taking you out of here." He didn't pick her up. He simply offered his hand. After a long moment of hesitation, her small, blue fingers wrapped around two of his. Her touch was cool, and he felt a strange, feather-light buzz of emotion, fear, confusion, and a fragile, budding hope. It was her empathy, he realized. She was feeling him. Getting her back to the Terran outpost was a gauntlet. The Hrothgar had posted watchers. Captain Jax chewed him out for a solid hour, but the legality of the purchase was airtight. Miles was just a private citizen exercising his rights. A spectacularly stupid one, but a legal one. The first few days were difficult. Lyra was skittish, hiding in the quarters Miles had arranged for her. She would startle at loud noises and cry out in her sleep. But Miles was patient. He brought her food, showed her how to use a human entertainment console, and gave her soft, Terran-style clothes. He never pushed. He was just there. Her empathy began to blossom in the safety he provided. One evening, he came back from a difficult drill, frustrated and tired. He hadn't said a word, but Lyra was waiting for her with a cup of water, her big eyes full of concern. "You are loud inside," she said, tapping her own temple. Miles blinked. "My thoughts." She shook her head. "The color, the feeling, it's dark red and sharp." He realized she was feeling his anger and stress. He took a deep, calming breath, forcing a smile. "How about now?" Her face lit up with the first true smile he'd seen. Softer, blue, like the sky in your memories. Weeks turned into a month. The Terran outpost became her home. The Marines, initially wary, were won over by her gentle nature and her uncanny ability to know when someone was sad or needed a friend. She was healing. Then the Hrothgar came. It was a raid, swift and brutal, an act of pure vengeance. Alarms blared as the outer perimeter was breached. The Hrothgar warship had slipped through the sensors, its target clear, the human compound. Miles burst into Lyra's room to find her curled in a ball, screaming, not from the sound of the explosions, but from the tsunami of violent, hateful intent washing over her from the attacking ship. "They're here for me," she sobbed. "The loud, cold ones. I won't let them take you." Miles swore, scooping her into his arms. He armored up, his rifle in hand. "Stay with me." The corridor outside was a chaos of smoke, laser fire, and the guttural shouts of Hrothgar raiders. Miles moved with practiced precision, a force of nature in powered armor. He was a shield, a fortress. He cut down two Hrothgar, who tried to block their path to the evacuation shuttle. But the leader was waiting for them in the hangar bay. It was the same one from the auction, its black armor scarred from the fight. It held a massive plasma cannon. "The empath belongs to me, human," it snarled. You stole my property. Lyra whimpered, burying her face in Miles's neck, her small body shaking uncontrollably. The Croftgar's malice was a physical weight on her mind. She is not property, Miles said, his voice flat and cold. He set Lyra down gently behind a cargo crate. Stay here. The Croftgar laughed, a sound like grinding stones. You think you can stop me, little human? I don't have to stop you, Miles said, raising his rifle. I just have to delay you. The fight was brutally one-sided. Miles was a superb soldier, but the Croftgar was a war machine. A blast from the plasma cannon melted a section of Miles's armor, searing the flesh beneath. He cried out, falling to one knee. The Croftgar loomed over him, raising its weapon for the killing blow. A pointless sacrifice. From behind the crate, a small voice spoke, no longer a whisper, but clear and resonant. You are empty. The Croftgar froze. It turned its helmeted head toward Lyra, who was now standing, her small hands clenched into fists. Her eyes were no longer fearful. They glowed with a fierce white light. You are a hollow thing, she said, her voice echoing with power. All you have is the cold. You have never known warmth. You have never felt love. You are nothing. She wasn't attacking it. She was showing it, showing the truth of its own barren existence. She was reflecting its own emotional void back at it, amplified 1,000-fold by her empathic gift. The Croftgar staggered back as if struck. It dropped its plasma cannon, its hands clawing at its helmet. A raw, agonized scream, full of a horror it had never been equipped to feel, tore from its vocoder. It was a scream of profound, soul-crushing loneliness. It collapsed to its knees, utterly broken not by force, but by truth. In that moment, the Terran reinforcements flooded the hangar, securing the area. Miles struggled to his feet, limping over to Lyra. The light in her eyes faded, and she stumbled, exhausted. He caught her, holding her tight. You were the brave one, he whispered into her silver hair. She looked up at him, her eyes full of tears, but also with a strength that hadn't been there before. You are my warm, blue sky, Miles. You are my home. As the medics saw to his wounds, Miles held the little alien girl everyone had abandoned. She had faced a void, and instead of being consumed by it, she had shown it its own reflection, and in doing so, she had found a family.